Truth talk.
As always, talk now.
You just gotta listen.
Real talk that we talk about. As always, talking.
You just gotta listen.
Real talk that we talk about. As always, talking.
You just gotta listen.
Real talk that we talk about. As always, talking.
You just gotta listen.
Yeah, hey, guess who's back, y'all?
Yes.
Another episode of your favorite podcast, Truth Talks. I'm your host, Crazy Bone.
I'm the co-host, Keith G.
Right now, and we have made it to chapter 5 of this book, the Bible, God's Word of Man's. Thank you all for tapping in once again, and man, we're going to jump right into it because we got a lot of information to cover, man. You know what I'm saying? Thank y'all for subscribing. Keep subscribing. Thank y'all for listening, all that. As we jump right into this now, on this chapter, we're going to discuss, the New Testament. Last episode, we spoke about the Old Testament to determine if the New Testament is made up of legend or myth. But first, I want to do a little recap of what we discussed in the last episode. We spoke about and questioned how reliable is higher criticism. And through the evidence we went over, it showed us that they are not reliable at all.
Yeah.
Not that reliable. In fact, they even failed to demonstrate why they believe what they believe. You know what I'm saying? They just, what it is, just what it is. You know what I'm saying? We spoke about and questioned if archaeology supports the Bible. And in the evidence we discussed, we saw that it does. But even sometimes archaeologists can have it wrong. You know what I'm saying? And we shouldn't be so quick to think they're right and that God is wrong.
Exactly.
We spoke about the fall of Jericho and how many people believed that the city didn't even exist until archaeological proof was later found, and that provided, the basis to believe it, and everybody had to go change their theories once again. So now it brings us here to the 5th chapter of this book, the Bible, God's Word of Man's, and it starts off, it says, the New Testament, history of myth. And we're going to start off like we do. We're going to read the chapter intro. It says, the New Testament can be described today as the best investigated book in world literature. So said Hans Kung in his book on being a Christian. And he was right. Over the past 300 years, the Christian Greek scriptures have been more than investigated. They have been more thoroughly dissected and more minutely analyzed than any other literature. The conclusions reached by some investigators have been bizarre. Back in the 19th century, Ludwig Noack in Germany concluded that the Gospel of John was written in 60 CE by the beloved disciple, who, according to Noack, was Judas. The Frenchman Joseph Ernest Renan suggested that the resurrection of Lazarus was likely a fraud, arranged by Lazarus himself to support Jesus' claim of being a miracle worker. While the German theologian Gustav Volkmar insisted that the historical Jesus could not possibly have come forward with messianic claims. Bruno Bauer, on the other hand, decided that Jesus never existed at all. He maintained that the real creative forces in early Christianity were Philo, Seneca, and the Gnostics. I don't even know what that is.
I don't know them niggas.
In the end, he declared that there never had been a historical Jesus, that the genesis of the Christian religion was late in the 2nd century and was from Judaism, in which Stoicism had become dominant. Today, few hold such extreme ideas, but if you read the works of modern scholars, you will find many still believe that the Christian Greek scriptures contain legend, myth, and exaggeration. But is this true? Now, so the New Testament, the Greek scriptures, has been more thoroughly investigated and analyzed than any other literature, just like the Old Testament. You know what I'm saying? Think about that, though. Like, they've done all this investigating and analyzing this book, and they still have not been able to prove that it's not true. It's like these people will say something about the Bible, bro. They'll say something about the Bible not being true, and then they'll just walk away from their whole claim like,
oh yeah,
it's gonna prove it. Not even bothering bothering to explain their point. They can just walk in the room and say, "Hey man, all right, that's it, I'm out."
Just talking.
Wait a minute, wait, come back and explain what you're talking about, man.
Mm.
That's basically what they did. You know what I'm saying? Just put it on the table. That's how it is. That's how we roll it. You know what I'm saying? All these people came with some really wild theories. The dude Ludwig said, you know, that the book of John was written by Judas. Now, where he got that from, I don't know where he got that from. You know what I'm saying? And then the dude, Joseph Ernest Renan, said that the whole story of Lazarus was a fraud. He said Lazarus made it up to make Jesus look good. And then the dude, Bruno Bauer, said that Jesus flat out never existed. There's no proof. He don't want to hear it flat out. You know what I'm saying? Some of these claims have really come out of left field.
Anything to discredit true things, you know. Well, we're going to go get into more of the things, but that's why even with when Jesus brought Lazarus back from the dead, that's why when he didn't go to his sisters, Mary and Martha was upset. You know what I'm saying? Because he was friends of them too, but they was upset because he didn't go back. He didn't go when you heard about it. You know what I'm saying? But he purposely waited because there was a custom, Hebrew and Jewish custom, that it was a certain amount of days that you allow the person to be dead so that you know that they're dead. He purposely came back after that so the witnesses that were around in those days, and it's written down there in Luke or Matthew or Mark, you can find it. But he purposely waited so that nobody would have no dispute about him rising back up when he brought him back to life.
Exactly. So we're going to keep on reading. It says, when were they written? It's the next subtitle. It says, it takes time for myth and legends to develop. So the question, when were these books written, is important. Michael Grant, a historian, says that the historical writings of the Christian Greek scriptures were begun 30 or 40 years after Jesus' death. Biblical archaeologist William Foxwell Albright cited C.C. Torrey as concluding that all the Gospels were written before 70 A.D. and that there is nothing in them which could not have been written within 20 years of the crucifixion. Albright's own opinion was that their writings was completed not later than about 80 A.D. Others come up with slightly different estimates, but most agree that the writing of the New Testament was completed by the end of the 1st century. What does this mean? Albright concludes, all we can say is that a period of between 20 and 50 years is too slight to permit of any appreciable corruption of the essential content and even of the specific wording of the sayings of Jesus. Professor Gary Hammerus adds, the Gospels are quite close to the period of time which they record, while ancient histories often describe events which took place centuries earlier. Yet, modern historians are able to successfully derive the events even from these ancient periods of time. In other words, the historical part of the Christian Greek scriptures are worthy of at least as much credence as secular histories. Certainly, in the few decades between the events of early Christianity and their being recorded in writing, there was no time for myths and legends to develop and be universally accepted. So that's a very key point right there. You know, like you said, it takes time for myths and legends to develop. It takes years.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And in the few decades between the events of this, you know, early Christianity and their writing it was no time for myths and legends to sneak in and for everybody to accept them that fast. You know what I'm saying? Oh yeah, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
It just wasn't time to do that. It was simply not enough time. Reading on, no. It says all these people have made these acquisitions, but they have never, and we're gonna keep saying this, they have never once proven them to be true.
Nah.
And we will keep reiterating that very point.
Got to.
Because they made these claims but have failed to provide accurate proof. But a lot of people believe them, and that's dangerous, you know what I'm saying? Because they're the ones spreading the misinformation, the fake news.
Oh, yeah, man. You know, anything to discredit something that we really should believe in, you know. Like we said before, they got all these stories of Hercules and all these other clowns and stuff like that, Achilles and these people like that, who they want to, so they keep their records and make movies after these people and stuff like that. And they really believe in these times and dates. But something that's the true and living God, his son coming, they find that real hard to believe. But, you know, it's further than man. You know what I'm saying? Evil and Satan will not rest until he can try to discredit God, you know what I'm saying, and attack the Son of God, you know, period. Because if you don't believe it, you have no power in it, you know what I'm saying? He's erasing your faith.
That's true. True. Reading on to the next subheading, it says eyewitness testimony. This is especially true in view of the fact that many of the accounts speak of eyewitness testimony. The writer of the Gospel of John said, "This is the disciple that Jesus loved, that bears witness about these things and that wrote these things." The writer of the book of Luke says, "Those who from the beginning became eyewitnesses and attendants of the message delivered these to us."
Yeah.
The Apostle Paul, speaking on those who witnessed the resurrection of Jesus, said, "Most of them remain to the present, but some of them have fallen asleep in death." In this connection, Professor F.F. Bruce makes a keen observation. It can have been by no means so easy as some writers seem to think to invent words and deeds of Jesus in those early years, when so many of his disciples were about who could remember what had and had not happened. The disciples could not afford to risk inaccuracies, not to speak of willful manipulation of the facts, which would at once be exposed by those who would be only too glad to do so. On the contrary, one of the strong points in the original apostolic preaching is the confident appeal to the knowledge of the hearers. They not only said, "We are witnesses of these things," but also, "as you yourselves also know."
Yeah.
So the way these people spoke to these people was writing and they was talking to these people.
Yeah.
And the way they was speaking to them, like, y'all know what happened. Y'all saw it.
Y'all saw it too.
He wasn't doing it to impress us.
Nah.
Because when they was, honestly, back then when they were writing these books, and it's another thing that's really unique. The writers of these books, they were writing these books. They had no idea what they were writing for.
Yep.
They didn't know that Job, like people like Job and like Luke and Matthew, they didn't know that thousands of years later we would be reading about them in this book.
Nah.
They didn't know that. So they wasn't trying to show off for us. They wasn't trying to like lie to us. They was trying. They was talking to each other. Dude was like, "Y'all well know what we just saw the other day."
Yep.
Jesus brought them people back to life.
Yep.
Like they wasn't trying to. They had no idea they would be talked about like this.
Yep.
Like, you know what I'm saying? So it's like,
that's why I like the way even Luke and them, it's recorded in Matthew, Mark, or Luke, if not all of them. They said, "Man, this ain't nothing we heard about." You know, you hear about, man, Kobe scored 81 or whatever it is, and you ain't see the game, but somebody told you about it. They was like, no, we was there. You know what I'm saying? We seen what Christ did. You know what I'm saying? You can't tell us nothing. We ain't making up nothing either.
Exactly. So we not only have the historical and archaeological proof that the things in the Bible really did happen, there were also eyewitness accounts to these things. They saw it with their own eyes, and you're not going to get everybody to go along with a lie, bro.
Yep.
Especially if it's for good. Luke said those people was there. Paul said that some of those people he was talking to them people. Like, some of them are still alive. He was speaking saying some of them, they were still alive at the time he was living.
Yeah.
Some of those people were still alive, which means he could go talk to them people and ask them.
Yep.
And he did that, and they all gave the same story to him. I'm pretty sure he wanted to be convinced, and he ain't go talk to them all at the same time. I'm quite sure, because Paul was a very smart man.
Oh yeah, he very educated.
I'm quite sure he studied all this before he was just like, okay, I know Jesus came to me, and but I got to study this for myself. And he wouldn't question all these people. That's why he quoted all this stuff in the scriptures, because he was convinced himself.
Oh, he was after that road to Damascus. It wasn't he was convinced 100% because he seen something he couldn't see no more. He was blind for 3 days, exactly. And then he got his sight back. And then he started. The only reason they start believing him because Barnabas was with him, and he was like, "Man, we just heard him preaching the gospel." You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. He's okay, even though some of the other cats was like, "Man, you show him?" Yeah. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But bottom line, like my man always say, they seen this. This is nothing. This is nothing. Just like if we seen something, we're gonna tell it to you. But just like with And this ain't no racist stuff, but it's just facts and what happened. Just like that jury said, we didn't see what we seen when they beat that man in front of that Hyundai. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? And they came back with that and had a riot to it because they can convince people they didn't see what they seen to cause injustice. Mm-hmm. And we've always been on the other hand of that kind of situation. So it ain't no different that our Lord went through that same kind of thing too.
Yes, indeed. Moving on, it says, is this text trustworthy? Is it possible that these eyewitness testimonies were actually were accurately recorded, but later corrupted? In other words, were myths and legends introduced after the original writings were completed? We have already seen that the text of the Christian Greek scriptures is in better condition than any other ancient literature. Kirk and Barbara Allen, scholars of the text of the Bible, list 5,000 manuscripts that have survived from antiquity down to today, some from as early as the 2nd century CE. The general testimony of this mass of evidence is that the text is essentially sound. Additionally, there are many ancient translations, the earliest dating to about the year 180 CE, that help to prove that the text is accurate. Hence, by any reckoning, we can be sure that legend and myth did not infiltrate into the Christian Greek scriptures after the original writers finished their work.
Not at all.
The text we have is substantially the same as the one that the original writers penned, and its accuracy is confirmed by the fact that the contemporaneous Christians accepted it. Can we then check the historicity of the Bible by comparing it with other ancient histories? To some extent, yes. Man, I find it very interesting that all the facts in the matter is, all the evidence they find supports the Bible as being accurate. And all the claims are proven to be false. Constantly. Constantly, as we read. If y'all been following along, they've all been proven wrong. And they don't even argue it no more.
Yeah.
They don't even argue it no more. They just sold the doubt in people and left it alone.
That's all you got to do.
So now that's what all the people doing. They ain't even got to do it no more. That's all they wanted to do.
Reasonable doubt.
Like, for real. That's all they wanted to do. So moving on, it says the documentary evidence. In fact, for events in the lives of Jesus and his apostles, documentary evidence apart from the Bible is quite limited. This is only to be expected since in the 1st century, Christians were a relatively small group that did not get involved in politics. But the evidence that secular history does provide agrees with what we read in the Bible. For example, after Herod Antipas suffered a resounding military defeat, the Jewish historian Josephus wrote in 93 CE said, "To some of the Jews, the destruction of Herod's army seemed to be divine vengeance, and certainly a just vengeance for his treatment of John, surnamed the Baptist. For Herod had put him to death, though he was a good man and had exhorted the Jews to lead righteous lives, to practice justice toward their fellows and piety towards God. Thus Josephus confirmed the Bible account that John the Baptizer was a righteous man who preached repentance and who was executed by Herod." Again, y'all, the proof is there. And it's not only coming from the Bible. These secular historians also wrote things down as part of history because they lived in these same time periods or very close to them. You know what I'm saying? And of course, this Christian writing and the history of them, Christians and their writings wasn't as abundant because, as you said, there was a very small group. They didn't really go out and mess with everybody else. Like God's people didn't go out and mess with the other nations like that. They didn't get involved in politics. They didn't do none of that. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, but people who were not even Christians and even people that despised them still wrote about the things they done. You know what I'm saying? Because that's what people do. That's how people today, journalists today and historians today, they write about the things of today that they discover. They're keeping record of our history.
Ledgers.
So that's the same thing they did. You know what I'm saying? And I'm sure they missing some things that people going to be like, well, how we know that was true that years down in the future, they're gonna have to pull that up and oh yeah, that did happen.
Yeah.
So this is the same thing. This is the same thing with record. Man always kept records of everything.
Especially kings back in those days. What he did, they killed John the Baptist that day, even though he had to decrease. It was, meant to come. But he told his wife about it. Said, "Hey, y'all relatives." She didn't take that too kindly. You know what I'm saying? So, the king. She had her daughter come dance for the king or whichever way, and he, he asked her whatever you want, pretty much. And she said, "I want John the Baptist's head." In a charger. Pretty much cut his head off and give it to me. I want that. That's what the mom asked her daughter to request, if I'm getting it correctly. But what I'm saying is they have scrolls there. They also had court gestures, comedians or whatever you have, they kept records is what I'm trying to say with this whole situation. Everything that went down, they had a scribe to write about that stuff. So especially execution, all that kind of stuff was going to be in a ledger.
And to further that, they wrote theirs down, but even their history perished. It's not available no more. Yeah, we can find some of it, but we didn't find it all in whole, like we found the Bible in whole.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying. And just like the example in the paragraph gave about John the Baptist, the Bible tells us exactly what happened with him. It tells us who he was, what his role was, how he was killed, and who killed him.
Yep.
And nobody believed it. But when this Jewish historian Josephus wrote about John, he expressed it almost verbatim of what the Bible said.
Yeah.
And he wasn't like he wasn't no part of the Bible. This dude, this is what he wrote on his own. You know what I'm saying? Like documented evidence.
Yeah.
It was documented.
Well documented.
Moving on, it says Josephus also mentioned James, the half-brother of Jesus, who the Bible tells us did not initially follow Jesus, but later became a prominent elder in Jerusalem. He documents James' arrest in these words: the high priest Ananias convened the judge of the Sanhedrin and brought before the man named James, the brother of Jesus, who was called the Christ, and certain others. In writing these words, Josephus additionally confirms that Jesus, who was called the Christ, was a real historical person. Other early writers too refer to things mentioned in the Greek scriptures. For example, the gospel tells us that Jesus preaching around Palestine met with a wide response. When he was sentenced to death by Pontius Pilate, his followers were confused and disheartened. Soon afterward, these same disciples boldly filled Jerusalem with the message that their Lord had been resurrected. In a few years, Christianity has spread throughout the Roman Empire. Witness to the truth of this comes from the Roman historian Tacitus, who was no friend of Christianity. Writing soon after 100 CE, he tells of Nero's cruel persecution of the Christians and adds, Christus, the founder of the name, had undergone the death penalty in the reign of Tiberius by sentencing of the procurator Pontius Pilatus. And the pernicious superstition was checked for a moment, only to break out once more, not merely in Judea, in the home of the disease, but in the capital of Rome itself. So here's another example of a secular historian writing about the things he saw in his lifetime. And this is kind of unique because this person, Tacitus, was by far no friend or fan of Christianity. He didn't like him.
So he gonna find any reason not to agree.
Right. He didn't like him. And we know that by the way he even described Christianity. He called it a disease. But even still, his writings confirm exactly what the scriptures tell us.
Yep.
Now, the Bible told us that Jesus was executed. His disciples was confused. They had kind of lost faith, you know what I'm saying, because they didn't truly understand what was happening at the moment. They didn't really understand what Jesus was telling them. But after Jesus was resurrected and they confirmed that, the preaching work resumed.
Oh yeah.
And it resumed at a speedy pace, and it started to spread throughout all of Rome. And that's exactly what Tacitus wrote.
Yeah.
That's exactly what he wrote. You know what I'm saying? When he said Christus, the founder of the name, had undergone the death penalty in the reign of Tiberius. You know what I'm saying? Like, this dude, like, he was there. Like, he knew it. To him, Christians was the new. He kind of wrote like good riddance to them.
Yeah.
I'm glad they go. But wait, they came back.
It's like a hater agreeing with you.
Right after they found out, look, right after they found, when the apostles found out that Jesus was resurrected, that's what he said. He said, they thought that they had shut it all the way down, but it was just getting started.
Oh, yeah.
They thought that they shut it, bro. They thought they shut it down, but it was just getting started. Only to break out once more. Not nearly in Judea, but all over.
All through the place.
So they thought they were shutting it down because they killed Jesus, but they actually made it spread more.
Oh, yeah. When he had them peoples go wait, you know what I'm saying, up in that upper room that we talk about and all that kind of situation sometime, when they got the Holy Spirit, and that's when Peter went out there and started preaching for the first day, and they was speaking to every man in their own language. They thought they was drunk. Peter had to tell them it wasn't even, it's the third hour. We ain't drunk. This is just the Lord's spirit in us speaking. You know what I'm saying? So you can't stop something like that. Period. It ain't going to happen. And last thing, too, it's kind of funny how these historians don't believe in what, you know what I'm saying, Christ and nothing like that, or some try to say he didn't exist or whatever it is. But in their own time, this is their writings of how they keep track of time in this world. Mm-hmm. They say BC and AD, before Christ and after death.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's kind of funny for people to keep. If he didn't exist, you keep your time like that. 97 BC and all that kind of stuff. 87 AD, all that kind of situation like that. That's before Christ and then after death.
Yeah, that's true, bro. That's true. Reading on, it says at Acts 18:2, the Bible writer refers to the fact that the Roman Emperor Claudius had ordered all the Jews to depart from Rome. 2nd century Roman historian Suetonius also referred to this expulsion. In his work, The Defied Claudius, the historian says, since the Jews constantly made disturbances at the instigation of Christus, he, Claudius, expelled them from Rome. If Christus here refers to Jesus Christ, and if the events of Rome follow the pattern in other cities, then the riots were not actually at the instigation of Christ, that is, Christ's followers. Rather, they were the Jews' violent response to the faithful preaching activity of Christians. Justin Martyr, writing in the middle of the 2nd century, wrote in reference of the death of Jesus, that these things did happen, you can ascertain from the acts of Pontius Pilate. In addition, according to Justin Martyr, these same records mention Jesus' miracles, regarding which he said that he did those things. You can learn from the acts of Pontius Pilate. Thus these acts or official records no longer exist. But they evidently did in the 2nd century, and Justin Martyr confidently challenged his readers to check them to verify the truth of what he said. So the Bible tells that a Roman emperor who was called by the name Claudius ordered the Jews to leave Rome. A historian from the 2nd century confirms this in one of his published works called The Deified Claudius. And he said, since the Jews constantly made disturbances at the instigation of Christus, he, Claudius, expelled them from Rome. Isn't that the same thing the Bible said? That's the same thing That's the same thing the Bible. That's the same thing the Bible told us, bro. And the paragraph brings out that it wasn't the Christians that was causing trouble. It was the Jews that didn't want the Christians spreading the word about Jesus. But those Christians was Jews too. But those Jews felt like, no, this ain't for everybody. You shouldn't be telling those people. Them people of the nations. You shouldn't be telling them the word. It ain't for them. When Jesus came here to give it to everybody. See, that's how selfish That's how selfish they was. That's how selfish and self-assuming they were. It's crazy.
Yeah, we get like that actually today. You know what I'm saying, with it. You know, we find something good and want to just keep it to a certain race or culture, you know what I'm saying, or something like that, or keep it away from people to either keep power or have people to lose hope.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? So, and then this historian, Justin Martyr, in the 2nd century, he wrote it in reference to Jesus' death. And he also said the same thing about the miracles that Jesus, he wrote about Jesus' death, and he said the same thing about the miracles that he performed. You know what I'm saying? He said, and look how confident he was, that these things did happen. You can ascertain from the acts of Pontius Pilate. And what he said about his miracles, that he did those things. You can learn from the acts of Pontius Pilate that he did those things. You know what I'm saying? Now, the official records that they had used are not available in our day, but they had access to all this stuff to know. Oh, yeah. Because they lived closer in that era. You know what I'm saying? So those records, just like we can go back to maybe however far we can go back at the library, and it's gonna stop at a certain point. I'm sure it was like that too. You know what I'm saying? But you know what I'm saying? They had it at their disposal if he wanted to go back and look that up.
Oh yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So moving on, this is the archaeological evidence. Archaeological discoveries have also illustrated or confirmed what we read in the Greek scriptures. Thus, in 1961, the name Pontius Pilate was found in an inscription in the ruins of a Roman theater at Caesarea. Until this discovery, there had been only limited evidence, apart from the Bible itself, of the existence of this Roman ruler. In Luke's Gospel, we read that John the Baptizer began his ministry when Lysanias was district ruler of Abilene. Some doubted that statement because Josephus mentioned Lysanias, who ruled Abilene and who died in 34 BCE, long before the birth of John. However, archaeologists have uncovered an inscription in Abilene mentioning another Lysanias who was district ruler during the reign of Tiberius, who was ruling as Caesar in Rome when John began his ministry. This could easily have been the Lysanias to whom Luke was referring to. So this right here was just a simple case of two people having the same name.
Pretty much. And
all it took was for a little bit of archaeology to clean it all up. You know what I'm saying? That's in itself. So we can move on from that. We can move on.
You know, it's also crazy too, man. How did they found King Tut stuff, all his stuff right there. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? They find what they want to find or announce what they want to announce and stuff like that. The Colosseum is still there. Of course, they built on top of it and all that kind of thing in Rome, but the Colosseum was in Rome. It's still the same Colosseum. The temple that Solomon built is still there. Still there, bro. You know what I'm saying? It's in ruins and which going to be rebuilt. And the enemy want to sit in there and, you know, sit in the temple. Ain't that something new? But all that stuff is there. You know what I'm saying? They just going to discredit what they want to.
Sodom, if I'm not mistaken, one of those cities, Sodom and Gomorrah or Babylon, is still there. Saddam and this is important to know. Saddam Hussein, before he died, he vowed to rebuild that city. Now in the Bible, God said that Babylon nor Sodom or Gomorrah
never
would ever exist again, ever, as a city. Where is Saddam Hussein now? Case rested. Let's move on. So it says in Acts, we read that Paul and Barnabas were sent to do missionary work in Cyprus, and there met up with a proconsul named Sergius Paulus, an intelligent man. In the middle of the 19th century, excavations in Cyprus uncovered an inscription dating from 55 CE that mentions this very man. Of this, archaeologist G. Ernest Wright says, It is the one reference we have to this proconsul outside the Bible, and it is interesting that Luke gives us correctly his name and title. When he was in Athens, Paul said that he observed an altar that was dedicated to an unknown god. Altars dedicated in Latin to anonymous gods have been discovered in parts of the territory of the Roman Empire. One was found in Pergamum with the inscription written in Greek, as would have been the case in Athens. Later, while in Ephesus, Paul was violently opposed by silversmiths, whose income was derived from making shrine images of the goddess Artemis. Ephesus was referred to as the temple keeper of the great Artemis. In harmony with this, a number of terracotta and marble figurines of Artemis have been discovered at the site of ancient Ephesus. During these last centuries, the remains of the huge temple itself were excavated. And I definitely remember this. I remember seeing those terracotta soldiers, all those soldiers lined up, and they found them and they uncovered them.
Right.
That's proof right there, bro. That's proof. And that was found not too long ago. I say maybe like 10, 15, 20 years ago, maybe, I think, if I'm not mistaken. Like, no lie, bro. You know what I'm saying? So like, this archaeology keeps proving, and this is the thing, archaeology keeps proving it. I feel like this. Some archaeologists or some people disagree with the Bible. But when it's proved, when any one thing is proved in the Bible, any one little thing, if it's proved, any one little thing, that should be consideration. That should be a motive and inspiration to at least give God the benefit of the doubt. Because he really deserves more than that.
Much more.
But at least if they can find things that constantly prove man wrong,
yeah,
I don't care if it wasn't everything, just something. I would give God the benefit of the doubt before I gave man the benefit of the doubt.
Word up, man. You know, unfortunately too, Cray, a lot of people's hearts is hardened. You know what I'm saying? Because when Christ walked this earth himself, the word walking himself, ain't no lie in him. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
He was doing miracles, but the scribes and the Pharisees and the Sanhedrin Council and those guys, the Pharisee guys, they still was like, no, that ain't, you know, they finding ways. So you can't do that on the Sabbath. You ain't doing this. They didn't even look at the things that they've never seen happen before, the miracles he did. They was looking to, he finna upstage us. He finna take our currency and finna take our power away. That's all that their heart was about right there. And it's still people that today we could almost show them anything. You know what I'm saying? Even though we still going to take time too, because some may believe, but we can show people almost anything. And they still going to say, no, that's not true. You know what I'm saying? But we still going to lay it down anyway.
Next subtitle says The Ring of Truth. Hence, history and archaeology illustrate, and to some extent confirm, the historical elements of the Greek scriptures. But again, the strongest proof of the truth of these writings is in the books themselves. When you read them, they do not sound like myths. They have the ring of truth. For one thing, they are very frank. Think of what is recorded about Peter. His embarrassing failure to walk on water is detailed. Then Jesus says to this highly respected apostle, "Get behind me, Satan." Moreover, after vigorously protesting that even if all the others abandoned Jesus, he would never do so, Peter fell asleep on his night watch and then denied the Lord 3 times. But Peter is not the only one whose weaknesses are exposed. The frank record does not gloss over the apostles bickering about who was the greatest among them.
Yeah.
Nor does it omit telling us that the mother of the apostles, James and John, asked Jesus to give her sons the most favored position in his kingdom. The sharp burst of anger between Barnabas and Paul is also faithfully documented.
Yep.
Noteworthy, too, is the fact that the book of Luke tells us that it was the women who had come with him out of Galilee who first learned about Jesus' resurrection.
Sure was.
This is a most unusual detail in the male-dominated society of the first century. Indeed, according to the record, what the women were saying appeared as nonsense to the apostles. If the history in the Greek scriptures is not true, it must have been invented. But why would anyone invent a story portraying such respected figures in such an unflattering light? These details would have been included only if they were true. And this is why I'm so convinced that the Bible is real, bro, and was inspired by God himself, because the Bible has a distinctive ring of truth.
Yeah.
It doesn't sound like myths or legend. It don't sound like no bedtime story my parents ever read me.
Nah.
Or no fairy tale we ever read in elementary school.
Yeah.
Because these accounts are connected to real people, to real events that actually took place. The exact names of real people, exact dates and times are given. Legends and fairy tales don't do that.
Yeah.
You can't go back. I love the movie Lords of the Rings. I can't go back and try to find the elves. I can't look in no history book and see the,
Little Smeagol's.
find the elves or the dwarves or none of them. I can't do none of that.
Word.
Here you can.
Yeah, man. And
Real
it's dope
talk.
too, like what you were saying. Real men of these days, they ain't finna put their embarrassing parts in no book.
They ain't.
You know what I'm saying? I mean, you got
For
certain
sure.
dudes now. You got certain guys that just, you know what I'm saying, is just like that. You know, maybe one or two dudes who'll write a book about themselves,
Yeah,
like
yeah.
Tyson or somebody, because he a
Yeah,
real
you will.
cat that's just like, hey man, I don't care what y'all thinking. But go ahead.
No. Keep going. But what you're saying is the majority of men
Yeah.
are not going to do it.
Yeah, but
They're not.
and especially the people in control, people of power.
Exactly.
They not finna. They finna
That's
clean
it.
up all that stuff right there, and then put a book out. You ain't finna see no flaws. This book has all of them in them, and it's not. And see, God didn't have those stories left in there so we could say, "Oh man, he a buster. He left Christ on this and this and that," or he said he was gonna do this and no. He left those in there purposely so that we could say, "Okay, you brought this man from here to there. You could do the same for me." Because we ain't always going to be on our P's and Q's all the time. You know what I'm saying? So it gives us hope. This ain't to buster these dudes out and say that they didn't do what they were supposed to do. It's left there to say, oh, you worked with men like this. They wasn't perfect men and you still promoted them. Look what they became after that.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying? Boldly speaking up, and 3,000 souls got saved on the day of Pentecost. You know what I'm saying? And then more. Yeah, they did have to argue in this and that times. Paul had to remind Peter of this and that. Hey, man, we ain't got to go by no circumcision. If that's the case, then that's what did Christ die for? You know what I'm saying? I mean, and we always have to sharpen each other. Iron sharpens iron, and we have to be there and restore our brothers back to what we believe. But the true facts of this whole thing, that this happened. Period.
Yeah.
People could deny it, like old people say, till the cows come home. You know what I mean? But it still don't make it not true.
It don't. You know. And moving on to the next subhead and paragraph, it says Jesus, a real person. Many have viewed Jesus as he is described in the Bible as an idealized fiction. But historian Michael Grant notes, if we apply the New Testament as we should, the same sort of criteria as we should apply to other ancient writings contained in historical material, we can no more reject Jesus' existence than we can reject the existence of a mass of pagan personages whose reality in historical figures is never questioned. Not only Jesus' existence, but also his personality come through in the Bible with a decided ring of truth. It is not easy to invent an unusual character and then present a consistent portrait of him throughout a whole book. It is nearly impossible for 4 different writers to write about the same character and consistently paint the same picture of him if that character never really existed. The fact that Jesus described in all 4 Gospels is obviously the same person is persuasive evidence of the gospel and it being truthful. Michael Grant quotes a very appropriate question. This is what he says. He said, how comes it that through all the gospel traditions without exception, there comes a remarkable, firmly drawn portrait of an attractive young man moving freely about among women of all sorts, including the decidedly disreputable, without a trace of sentimentality, unnaturalness, or prudery, and yet, at every point, maintaining a simple integrity of character? The only answer is that such a man really existed, and acted in the way the Bible says.
Or
So, man, what this is saying, man couldn't even dream up a character like Jesus
talk to him.
and be accurate.
Really though, they got Frankenstein that they talk about and all that old weird stuff, Dracula and them. You know what I'm saying?
Like, for even when they portray him in the movies, they get him wrong. All the time. Every time. You know what I'm saying? That's like, yo, it's just like, I'm glad we're going over this Bible, bro, because it makes all the accusations, and I've been seeing y'all comments too, a lot of y'all agree. It makes all these accusations look exactly what Jehovah God called the wisdom of men. Foolishness.
Yeah.
It looks like your accusations look like foolishness. It sounds like foolishness. It makes no sense. I don't even understand how some people get caught up in it and listen to these people. Because, like, or like we discussed, I do. Because, like, reading this,
Yeah.
it explained to me why. Because y'all love to hear, you want to hear what you want to hear. And this is not telling you, the Bible is not telling you what you want to hear.
Yeah.
I understand that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that's that, like, you know what I'm saying? Even God say he'll give people over to a reprobate mind. You know what I'm saying? Where you won't even, he'll actually give you the illusion of what you want to believe. You don't believe that he had a son here? Okay, what he ain't going to do is force you.
Exactly.
He didn't want robots. He could have made us all robots and we just be doing exactly what he want at exactly time. But that's not the kind of God he got. Who wants something that, or yes man? You know what I'm saying? Like just well, a lot of people do want that.
Yeah.
So you can't be, yeah, they do want that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But that's not what he wanted. What he actually wanted to do was be a father to us and dwell amongst his peoples. That's what he wanted to do and take care of us day by day. You know what I'm saying? But the enemy has a problem with that, so he distorted our minds, made us think that God's holding something back. God invented sex. Well, if he did this, why can't we do this and that? All he said was get married, man. You know what I'm saying? Know who you fitting to marry and stuff like that. Cause less problems. Start a family. You know what I'm saying? All this. I'll pause on that one. But you know what I'm saying? All this chaos that we doing to ourselves because we want to go against the grain of what God said. See, that's why he's attacking the word of the Lord. Because if you can attack that, you attacking the program. You attacking the whole plot that God have for you. He got a whole beautiful. In his mind, he have a whole beautiful life for you. I had to learn that kind of thing and start to catch up and say, Lord, bless your plan in me. Not my will did, just like how Christ said, not my will, but your will be did. You know what I'm saying? It's bigger than me. I want to fall in line of what you're talking about. And hopefully as people get older, young people especially, the closer you can grab onto that will be the better for your whole life. Trust me, I wasted a lot of years not trying to get on the program of God, but thanks for him that he kept knocking on my door.
Yeah, definitely. All right, getting into this last subheading, it says, why do they not believe? Again, since there is compelling evidence for saying that the Greek scriptures are true history, why do some say they are not? Why is it that many, while accepting parts of them as genuine, nevertheless refuse to accept everything they contain? It is mainly because the Bible records things that modern intellectuals do not want to believe. It tells, for example, that Jesus both fulfilled and uttered prophecies. It also tells that he performed miracles and that after his death he was resurrected.
Mm-hmm.
In this skeptical 21st century, such things are incredible. Regarding miracles, Professor Ezra P. Good notes, there is one reservation which some of the critics feel themselves justified in making, that miracles do not happen. Some accept that Jesus may have effected healings, but only of the psychosomatic mind over matter type. As for the other miracles, most explain them away as either inventions or as real events that were distorted in the telling. As an example of this, consider the occasion when Jesus fed a crowd of more than 5,000 with just a few loaves and 2 fishes.
Mm-hmm.
19th century scholar Heinrich Paulus suggested that what really happened was this. Smart people finna tell us, yo.
Yeah.
This is what he said happened. He said Jesus and his apostles found themselves attended by a large multitude that were getting hungry. So he decided to set a good example for the rich among them. He took what little food he and his apostles had and shared it with the multitude. Soon, others who had brought food followed his example and shared theirs. Finally, the whole multitude was fed.
Ain't that so?
If this is what really happened, though, it was a remarkable proof of the power of good example. Why would such an interesting and meaningful story be distorted to make it sound like a supernatural miracle? Indeed, all such efforts to explain away the miracles as other than miraculous pose more problems than they solved.
Yep.
And they are all based on false premise. They start by assuming that miracles are impossible.
Yeah.
But why should that be the case? According to the most reasonable standards, both the Hebrew and the Greek scriptures are genuine history, yet they both contain examples of prophecy and miracles. What then if the prophecies are genuine? And what if miracles actually did occur? Then God was indeed behind the writing of the Bible, and it really is the word, not man's. And it really is his word, not man's.
Exactly.
In a future chapter, we will discuss the questions of prophecy. But first, let us consider miracles. Is it reasonable in this 21st century to believe that in early centuries, miracles did happen?
Oh, yeah.
That's the end of this chapter. We finished chapter 5, y'all. You know what I'm saying? Chapter 5 of this book. And as you can see, the next chapter is chapter 6. We will be getting into going over the miracles and looking at the evidence of the miracles. And I'm telling you, I've already read the chapter, so I'm telling y'all want to tune into this one because it's very, very logical. Makes so much sense about miracles and why you should definitely believe they can and did happen.
You got to, even in this day too. You got to be careful because you're looking at a miracle every day. Every day you wake up and get to look into the mirror. This ain't just something that's just given to you. Go down to Forest Lawn or Rose Hills or wherever they got cemeteries and stuff like that at.
When that child of yours is being born,
yeah,
what do you think that is? Like because we don't even know what goes on inside the body as it's being made. You know what I'm saying? Like that's miracles right there.
Baby's in full water. He inside of water with no water scuba gear or none of that, and he breathing and kicking it and all that kind of situation. We just lowering miracles because we so geeked off these so-called stars of today. You know what I'm saying? I ain't saying ain't nothing wrong with going to a football game or having your favorite this and that, but look, man, we paying so much attention to those people that we missing the everyday miracles that our God is still giving to us. You know what I'm saying? He's still giving us miracles. What do you think Jehovah Jireh means? That means my provider. You know what I'm saying? He's still providing for you every day. He said birds ain't got no store to go to, but they still build houses. They still fed every day. He said how much more do he care about us than birds?
Exactly.
Take it a little slow. Look around a little bit. You a miracle. You know what I'm saying?
Miracle.
Yeah.
Check it out. but
what's that sound like that?
I think it's very important to mention again the times that we're living in because they're very skeptical times where people think, like we said, everything is fake news and that everybody is lying to them.
Camera tricks.
Again, one of the main reasons people don't want to believe is because it's not telling them what they want to hear, or it's not telling them the things. It's telling them the things they don't want to believe, and they usually don't. And people usually don't want to believe that they were wrong.
That part.
People do not want to believe that they were wrong. They want to just ignore it and keep on moving. I'm living my life. This is how I live, and I'm right.
Yeah.
But that ain't the case. Who are you? You know what the people who were promoting these accusations that the Bible wasn't valid, what they were called? You know what these people were called? These people were called free thinkers. Yeah, that's what these people were called, free thinkers. But here's the thing about the whole free thinker thing.
Talk to him.
Being a free thinker is the same thing as having free will and freedom of choice. And that's something that God gave to every single one of us. Every human that ever lived, every human alive, every human to be born in the future has been given the freedom of choice to make your own decisions. He gave us free will to choose between life and death. What else is there? What else is there? Plain and simple, he's saying, this is what he's saying. I'm laying two options out for y'all. You got life, you got death. And he didn't sugarcoat nothing. He plainly said, if you follow my way, I will give you life forever.
Yep.
But if you follow the way of the world, you're going to die. Bottom line. And I'm not going to influence your decision. I'm not going to make you follow me. I'm not going to pressure you. I'm just going to lay it down, what I want you to do, and you choose. Now, some people can say, oh, man, that's pressure right there. No, it ain't, because half the world ain't doing what he said to do anyway.
Word up.
They doing what they want to do anyway. So, no, it's not pressure. They don't care. You know what I'm saying? So, it's like he already gave us. I'm a free thinker. I choose not to believe the garbage they say about the Bible.
Oh, yeah.
The majority of the world thinks, the majority of people thinks this book was written by men. I don't. I'm a free thinker.
Yeah.
Y'all get away from me. What's happening?
Yeah.
For real. It can go both ways.
Yeah.
It depends on how you use it. It can go both ways.
It's crazy too, man. And his arms are still out for us, you know. His will is that nobody perish. You know what I mean? But that's why he gave us the free will to do this type of thing. And it's all set out just like what you're talking about. It's set on both sides like that. A lot of people just choose to, I think I want to have this kind of fun, because they don't even know really what fun is. You know what I'm saying? Evil has taught us that we missing something if we go with God. That's the, it ain't no, let me tell you something about, he the inventor of fun. He's the inventor of laughter. We didn't do nothing until he did it, until he allowed us to do things. You know what I'm saying? But I see how people could be miswayed, because I live on earth too, and I see the pools and the things of sin and how it looks. Shoot, if it wasn't some kind of fun in it, you know what I'm saying, people wouldn't be attracted to it. But it's the wrong kind. You know what I'm saying? And it kind of makes the decision a little bit easier. You like, some people, they say, man, hell, I don't even want to go. I don't even want to go to with no goodies and all that kind of situation. I've heard it been said like that. You know what I mean? But it ain't like that, man. You know what I'm saying? The ultimate father, any good father will want their son or their daughter to go on a path that they have in their mind for them. Go to, you know, whether it's school or this and that. Don't nobody start out wanting their children to go into a destructive life. You know what I'm saying?
Real talk. You know what I'm saying, man? And once again, we thank y'all for joining us, man. This is our 11th episode.
Oh, yeah.
You know, and we're going to have 12 episodes. The next one is our 12th one, and that's going to be our, you know, the end of our first season.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So, but y'all make sure y'all check out that 12th episode. It's on humility. You're going to love it. That's how we going to end off the first season. And once again, we thank y'all for joining us, man. And just remember, the truth is always talking.
Just got to shut up and listen.
Truth talk, truth make the truth